Welcome everyone to Crush Cash Game episode 12. Starting off with jacks in the bottom left. Looks like we're going for the limp raise early on. Oh, actually we just limp call. That's pretty interesting that I didn't limp raise in this scenario. I think our hand is super under-repped. I think check raising here, we can actually, I like check raising better than just flatting. I think check raising looks bluffier. It looks strange. I think we can get it in against a range that we pretty much have crushed. Minimum donk bet at the bottom right table. That's pretty interesting on that board. The bottom left, we're going ahead and flatting the ace-queen off. On the button, it's reasonable. We have position, a hand that dominates their range. Pretty annoying at the bottom right. I didn't really know what to do on the turn. Kind of a lockdown board where it's tough to improve with the jack pairing, and we can't really call a river bet. But the bottom left table is super interesting, and it's one of those classic situations where if I knew then what I know now. It's four-way action. The pre-flop raiser bets 78 into 55, and it's very unorthodox, and I opted to just fold my two pair. He shows a jack. Later on in the session, we're going to see exactly how crazy this guy is, and that was not going to be a profitable fold. But I think in general, in that spot, betting four ways, like, you have to take into consideration that we're not just calling the flop, right? If you bet 78 on the flop, there's going to be 190 on the turn, and where our whole stack is at risk basically if we decide to continue on with the ace queen. And I just don't think against most people's under the gun range betting four ways on ace king queen rainbow, I don't think that ace queen is going to be doing very well. As you can see, I went back and took a picture of that particular hand because it was pretty interesting, and as it turns out, the villain had ace jack, which is just, you know, a silly play with ace jack because we have jack 10 in our range. You know, every single player has the nuts in their range. They're only going to get action by a hand that's better than them. Just a pretty poor play all around, but what can you do? Kings at the top left. Pretty good spot in the cutoff. I think we're going to get 3-bet on the button fairly often. That's a spot where players like to 3-bet us light. And I think that while you probably shouldn't do it every time when you get 3-bet light with kings there, I think we can just flat the 3-bet and then do some check raises on the flop. I think a 4-bet bluffing there works a good amount of the time. So we got an ace turn with our 6-8. We are probably going to go ahead and rep the ace. It's a scare card. We pick up the pot a lot. We're not facing a raise that often. We raised with a jack 8 at the bottom right versus a shorty, and he 3-bet us minimum. Really hard to turn a profit, only being able to win, you know, his 90 whatever dollars it was. So we opted to just not see a flop and fold. A lot of negative implied odds if we call with the jack 8. A lot of different things we can do facing the raise with the ace deuce. We opt to just flat. I think we're ahead. We're ahead a decent amount of time. A decent amount. Some amount of times he just turned trip nines with a pair and a flush draw. You know, sometimes he has a 7-8. I think if he checks back, it's very likely that we're winning. And with a small bet like that, I don't think he's going to bet the river as a bluff. Okay, so we got donked into pot at the bottom left with our jacks after we 3-bet the crazy guy. We opt to check back the turn. I think we could bet the turn. I think when he checks, I think we're ahead of his range. And I think that putting in a bet is not bad. So on the river, we opt to make a very small value bet because at that point we're very sure we're winning the hand. Just how do we want to size it? I don't think we can size it too big because we're not going to get a call out of something marginal like he did have top pair there. So you want to be very careful in those spots when value betting to value bet a size that you're going to get called by worse. On the ace deuce hand, we just can't do anything on that river. That river connected every single thing, and it may have been a blessing in disguise. As you know, I guess it's possible that he flopped a set of sixes and turned a full house, and we were just drawing dead. But I do think we're winning enough to peel the turn. Unfortunate fold around with the ace king suited. As always, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, just take a second and click the button. It means a lot to me. You need to get that subscriber count up. I saw that some lady who unwraps toys on camera has over 4 million subscribers. I can't even fathom. I don't understand. Trying a little different thing with the HUD, just trying to make showdowns a little more visible and clean up the area a little bit. I kept having a problem with clicking the cascade button in the middle of my sessions, but I think I got that worked out now. Aces at the top left and the cutoff. Good spot. Hope to get a 3-bet, obviously. And it folds around. I think we've had aces, kings, and ace king and no action. That's the thing. Sometimes, you know, you can complain about not getting any good cards, not flopping any sets, not blah 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 blah, but it's all about scenarios that are profitable. And sometimes you don't get action. You don't have an opportunity to win any money with aces. You don't have an opportunity to win money when you flop a set. It's not like you wait all day to flop top set, then you flop top set and somebody just hands you their stack. A lot of times when you flop a set, you get one bet. King queen suited at the bottom right. Raised minimum. We have top pair. We get a little tricky. Check back the flop. I don't think it's the worst. Now we can bet pretty much knowing that we have the best hand. Throw out a very small bet to try to get action from random pairs, pairs of sevens, things of that nature. Because I mean, what are we repping? Like we're not repping very much. Players should be aware of that. Very good card on the river for us getting paid. 9-10 makes a pair, and like I said, it's really hard for people to give us credit. And we got a pair. We got called by a pair of 9s on the river. Flopping top pair at the top right, 4 ways. I like donking here, and I'll tell you why. Because it's 4 ways, first of all. The preflop raiser is not going to bet on this particular board unless he has this beat. A lot of times it's just going to check through, and then any card higher than a 9, we have absolutely no idea what to do, and basically we just have to check and hold our breath. So it's imperative that the flop gets bet with our hand, and the way to ensure that is to do the betting ourselves. It appears as if we ran for a quick bathroom break. I can't imagine these decisions taking that long. Bathroom break cost us, I think. I think we should have c-bet the ace-10. But what can you do? Sometimes you just gotta go to the bathroom. Nines under the gun. Very good spot for us at the bottom right table. We have $81 on our left. They're not going to be able to hurt us very bad, put much pressure on us, and we are on the left of a stack that has us covered. So that's a winning situation right there. For the most part, this is how I choose what seat I'm going to sit in. I try to sit to the left of the money, or I will sit to the right of a short stack. Pretty aggressive player, seat number 4. We're going to peel a lot of flops. Light, we're going to mess with him. He bet half pot, which is... oh man, I hate that. That was not good. We should have raised him. We should have floated him. You can call the flop and raise him on the turn. I really just don't like that fold. I probably just wasn't paying close enough attention. I can actually, looking back, I can remember exactly what was happening right there, and when I was muting and unmuting the volume, my girlfriend called me, and the sound was coming out of Soundflower instead of the internal speakers, and I couldn't get the sound off. So I was for sure talking on the phone when that hand happened. So just so everybody learns that lesson, we miss small things that really add up when we're distracted, when we're on the phone, when we're not giving poker our full attention and trying to be the best we can possibly be. So try to stay away from distractions as much as possible. Put your phone in airplane mode. Nothing disastrous is going to happen if you're super scared of somebody not being able to get in touch with you, just turn it off airplane mode once every 30 minutes and see if, Armageddon's happen. I think one of the best lessons that I've learned this year has been how airplane mode can just skyrocket my productivity. Whenever I'm super intent or focused on doing something like reading a book, writing a blog, writing a newsletter, setting a timer for whatever it is, like an hour, and putting my phone in airplane mode and just removing all distractions allows me to be so much more productive than I really ever have been in my life. Still waiting to get the 4-seat, who appears to be playing just a ridiculous amount of hands. Considered raising with the Queen-8 there. I don't think it would have been the worst. I think we pick up that pot a high percent of the time when we do raise. Nothing really going, just a little break in the action. Appears as if the 3-seat is a weak player at the top left. The 4-seat at the bottom left is obviously one of our targets. Good spot at the bottom right with the fish on our left and the short stack at that. The 6-seat at the top right appears to be a fish, and probably the 4-seat as well. With that being said, like with the king jack off, I think it's a marginal open, but when the fish is in the blinds, I think it makes it a profitable open. We should always entice the fish to play with us out of position. We're just going to be making so much better decisions than them. We're going to be playing so much better than them that it allows us to open a little lighter with a wider range of hands. One of our goals as poker players is to get in as many positive situations as we can. And anytime we're in position with a pretty good hand versus a fish who's playing 50% of his hands, that is a great spot. The 9-5 at the bottom right, we're obviously calling the $4 bet. I don't think we should raise because we lose action from a lot of hands that we're doing very well against. The turn is interesting because I do believe we should raise because we can get called by a lot worse hands that have equity. As it turns out, we got called by a better hand that had equity, but we get called by a lot of pair plus straight draws that we're beating, and we're not going to get a bet on the river unless they hit and they're beating us. So we may as well put in the raise while we're more than likely ahead, get that bet in there, and then check behind on the river when we don't improve. If we get 3-bet on the turn, we just fold our marginal hand, no big deal. The king 10 is pretty interesting at the top left. Versus a $4 bet, I think our best line is to check raise, and just try to try to represent some sort of airball bluff type thing and get called by all the pairs in between kings and sixes and his pair of sixes. And we end up getting min raised back, and this is buyer beware. I mean, I deserve to turn a 10, and I deserve to double this guy up, but because I called his 3-bet on the flop. Most people's bet 3-bet range on the flop is extremely strong, and in a lot of cases with top pair, I'm just drawing dead. It was a really poor move on my part to call the bet on the flop. I absolutely deserve to turn top 2 and double him up. Aces at the bottom left. Perfect scenario. Crazy guy opens. We go ahead and 3-bet him. He calls, and remember, he's crazy, right? Like, we want to give him an opportunity to go nuts. When we check to him, he bets pot. That is very much expected. We want to give him a chance to bluff. We don't want to bet and let him play perfectly and just fold. His weakness is that he's too aggressive. So we want to give him a chance to be aggressive. As you can see, he had king jack off, absolutely no equity. And he just handed us his stack in a spot where yeah, obviously if he were thinking about it, he would know that he's not getting many folds. But you want to observe and determine how your opponents are weak and how they're leaving themselves open to being vulnerable, and then do whatever you can to put them in a spot where they let their vulnerability shine through. With over aggressive opponents, just hand them a little rope, and that does the trick. Flatting the ace queen off at the bottom right. You know, this is a spot where I think we could very likely we can make a play. I think that raising the flop would be the play to make. I don't really like floating because I think we have too many pocket pairs in our range, and we're going to be facing a lot of c-bets on the turn, in which case it then becomes a matter of investing our whole stack to, well, actually, I mean, if we flat the flop, it may not be a float, it may be for value, and when he bets the turn, we're basically inducing him to bet the river, and then we find ourselves calling off with ace queen high. So maybe not particularly the worst thing to do, because we block aces, we block queens, but it's a little risky because not a lot of players are, like, you have to understand who's capable of doing what, and not everybody's capable of just firing 3 shells in that spot with nothing. Like, if it were the 4 seat at the bottom left table who had 3-bet us and then was firing, we know he's going to fire with way less than ace queen high, so that makes it an okay play. But generally at anonymous tables, you don't have a sample size big enough to determine who's capable of making that sort of play. Not everybody is capable. Some players, when they 3-bet pre-flop and bet on 9-9-10, they just always have kings. They just always have aces. And you're just lighting money on fire by calling down with ace queen high. Nothing really going right now. The lesson that, you know, players have their weaknesses in different areas. Took me a long time to learn. I thought that, you know, if a player was a fish, then a player was a fish. But players lose in a multitude of ways, and it's up to you to figure out why they're losing. What mistakes are they making? Players that play super tight, their mistake is they're whenever they do give action, they always have it. They're very predictable. It's very easy to just chip away at them and take money slowly and then not give them any action when you face resistance. It's also very easy to read their hands and maybe make them make folds when they cap their range at, you know, top pair or something like that, and we decide to go nuts on a scary board. Very loose players who are passive, obviously they play too many hands and they don't fold often enough, and the way you exploit them, of course, is to make top pair, top kicker plus type hands and then just get paid. Players that just go nuts, you just make a pair and hang on for your life. At the top right hand, the queen 9, we opt on the turn to raise. I don't know how I feel about the raise. I don't think we're winning here a ton of the time. I also think it's a pretty annoying spot to play on the river, even in position, with player donking into us, because they get to play the river kind of perfectly against us. Like if they have like a hand with a pair and the nut flush draw or something like that, then we get to charge them in position and just check back the river. I'm not sure once I raise the turn if I continue to fire the river. I think it's very important to think about, you know, if I do X on the turn, what sort of hand is going to be re-raising me and getting it in. A lot of times when you really think through a situation, there aren't many hands that are going to just pile on you on the turn. So you can learn how to create leverage. You can learn how to create spots where maybe you have top pair with a bad kicker, where you think a raise on the turn is going to fold out a lot of the hands that beat you, that are top pair with a better kicker, but get draws like pair plus flush draws, open and straight draws, nut flush draws to call. And then on the river, the river just goes check, check. We got about 1 minute left in this video, and I want to thank everybody for listening. Like always, I hope you're learning. I hope that you're really thinking about some of the things that I discuss in my videos, some of the concepts. I know that if you're playing a little smaller, some of these concepts might not apply to your game. The smaller games a lot of times are very straightforward, but these are just things to keep in the back of your mind. Some of the lessons I believe are universal, like knowing exactly how your opponents are bad and then exploiting that fact. You can apply that at any limit that you play. So I want to thank you very much for listening. Enjoy the rest of my video. It's got about 30 seconds left. Have a good day.